listen to everything I'm about to say instead of changing the channel, turning me off, or sending me hate mail after the first sentence here. I like Liz Cheney. Always have. I like her parents. Don't know her sister Mary. I like her. I don't think she's one of the bad guys. Now, no. Wait. Just follow along with me here. What I find remarkable, actually, is a lot of people who were Cheney fans suddenly aren't. It's this turn on a dime thing that has happened over time. People who were aren't. People who weren't are. The truth of the matter is many of the people who are mourning the loss of Liz Cheney in Congress are people who wouldn't pee on her if she were on fire, if she were a Republican nominee for president, because she's pro-life. She actually is conservative. May not be as conservative as me or you, but she's certainly center-right. Wyoming wanted a representative for Wyoming, not a statesman in Washington, D.C., and so they made a change. Ironically, they've replaced a woman who voted for Donald Trump twice with a woman who was one of the leading Never Trump voices who now says the election was stolen. Whether she actually believes it or she's navigating the politics of the day with new rhetoric to try to get elected, I can't say. But she will probably be more of a culture warrior for Montana than Liz Cheney has been. Here's why I'm not going to throw Liz Cheney under the bus. As a lot of my friends have. In fact, I got attacked last night by some anonymous people on Twitter I've never heard of this is why we can't listen to you again because you said she's not a bad person. A lot of my friends suddenly, they don't like her. And here's why I'm not going to hate on Liz Cheney, even as we over time have disagreed more and more on stuff. And I think had she been on the January 6th committee and served as a voice for allowing cross-examination and other opinions to prevail and have a fair hearing as opposed to this lockstep march with the Democrats, she probably could have salvaged something. Maybe she still would have lost. Having voted for impeachment, probably would have lost. But the reason I'm not willing to go there, and I caution you to not go there either with anyone right now in politics, if you can help it, is it's very clear to me we're going through a political realignment in this country. And I've talked about this before, but it's worth dwelling on here with Liz Cheney. When you think about it, the entire Cheney dynasty, they were legacies of the Republican Party. Dick Cheney got his start working for Don Rumsfeld in Nixon's White House. He became a congressman. He became a Secretary of Defense for George H.W. Bush, leading the first Gulf War. He became the Vice President of the United States. He was the conservative in the White House. I know many people who worked with and for Dick Cheney in the Bush White House who said Cheney was instrumental in stopping the Bushies from advancing aggressive governmental policies that conservatives would have hated. And now suddenly Dick Cheney is the forever war monster, and so is his daughter. I saw some guy on the internet say that they started forever wars for profit or some such. Many of the people who have come into the Republican coalition through Trump are people who for a very long time were on the left and have an isolationist foreign policy that is deeply unhelpful, I think, to the future of this country. I think many of them will work their way back out of the Republican Party over time. We're going through a political realignment in this country. And the only thing I think I can do is tell you exactly what I think and be honest with you. Try to be mindful of where my views have changed over time because some of you have changed in other ways or you haven't changed on this particular position. But I haven't changed on the fact that I've always thought very highly of the Cheney family and of Liz Cheney, even if I've disagreed with her. And I'm not going to smear her, throw her under the bus, and dance on her grave, even as I think the people of Wyoming had the right to choose someone different. They chose different, and that does not make them bad either. The media wants to use this as a damning indictment on the Republican Party as the party of Trump. The Republican Party is a party that is largely made up of Trump voters, but even that is changing. Keep in mind, after the November election in 2020, Donald Trump, 90% of Republicans said he should run again. Then it went down to 60%. Then it went down to 53% until August 8th of this year when suddenly it was back up to only 56%. It's been dwindling over time. And as Trump fades from the news, his support fades too, and we continue to see a political realignment. I've got friends, and they are friends of mine, who are now diametrically opposed to positions they had just 5 years ago. They've changed. Most of them are willing to be intellectually honest and say yes, and here's why they've changed. Some of them refuse to acknowledge they've changed. I know people on television I've long held in high regard and considered friends, some of whom no longer want to have anything to do with me because they think I'm too Trump friendly. I actually had an email from a listener who listened to my monologue yesterday on how Republicans, if they can't move on from talking about Trump, should handle it in juxtaposition to Biden. And she was upset, said, I can't listen to you anymore. Sounds like you're shilling for Trump. And I'm just telling you what I think the GOP should do. I'm trying to give some level of analysis on how you navigate these things. But people are very sensitive these days, in large part because we've moved from modernism to postmodernism. Postmodernism is no longer a fact-based society. It is emotionally driven. The policy positions you like tend to be the policy positions that have an emotional appeal to you. And many of the positions that have an emotional appeal to people are the positions that punish the people that those people hate. So you are gravitating towards an on the left position. You gravitate towards someone like Trump because he's willing to fight. That's what you hear about Trump all the time. He's willing to fight. Pay no attention to the actual policies or the contradictions or the reversals of fact or truth. It's he fights, and we got to stand with him when he fights. The left is the same freaking way, and they refuse to acknowledge it. At least I can point it out. The left has an emotional appeal towards policies that they think own the other side. Look at the rapid embrace of drag queen story hour and drag queens across America. It turns out people on the right don't want their kids exposed to it. They don't like it. And so there's been this sudden emotional embrace of drag queen story hour across America. What was only happening in a few fringe places around the country is now mainstream on the left across America, even inside the military now under the Biden administration, because people on the right don't like it. That's the only reason they're doing this. We're in postmodernism. Everything is emotional. And part of being emotional is you get on social media and you pound your chest and you dance on the grave of the people you've defeated. And then you get mad at people like me for saying, hey, I don't actually hate Liz Cheney. I don't think she's a bad guy. Well, in postmodernism, an emotional response has to be accompanied with performance. And a lot of people want to perform on social media. All of this is to say, we're going through a massive, profound political realignment. It's happening on the Democratic side as well. They just don't recognize it. As they move further and further left, you're seeing non-white voters move further and further to the right. It's happening to them. I'm at least aware of it and can see it happening. I have friends of mine who were stalwarts of the conservative movement who now say, what has conservatism done ever for anything? What has conservatism conserved? I see people who were of the left. For example, I was on a panel last month in Nevada, in Las Vegas, with Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald is a progressive. He is of the left. He is married to a guy. They have children. They live in Brazil. He's on the left. He doesn't like the national security apparatus of the United States. He and I are fairly diametrically opposed, and suddenly he's embraced by a center-right coalition because he's anti-woke. He doesn't like the wokes. Neither do I. On that, we find common agreement. On distrust of the media, we find common ground. And so you're finding people these days who find common ground on the issue of the day, and suddenly they're all friends. And the moment the issue of the day moves to something where they're not suddenly, well, I hate that person, I never liked that person, burn all the pictures of us on stage, I think that's kind of a BS way to operate in life. Be nice to as many people as you can. Be kind and show grace to as many people as you can. You don't have to be friends with all of these people. But the idea that as the nation and the politics and the political parties turn and evolve and realign, that what was then good is now bad, what was then orthodoxy is now heterodoxy, I think is not a healthy way for us to live. I think it's perfectly fine for the people of Wyoming to have moved on. I keep wanting to say Wisconsin. People of Wyoming, they wanted to move on from Liz Cheney. They have every right to do so. In fact, as I said when Liz Cheney was first getting elected. I liked her, I supported her, but I still think it's not healthy in our society that we keep coming back to Bushes, Cheneys, and Clintons. It's not. We, as a nation, should stop having political dynasties evolve around families. Now, the media loves Liz Cheney, and they only love her for one thing. She hates Donald Trump. And so she'll be useful to them. You'll start hearing a lot more about and of Liz Cheney in the coming months because she's very useful to the media. But Liz Cheney hasn't really changed her core conservative convictions. Maybe she will. I don't know. The whole nation seems to be realigning now. I've got friends who used to be like hardcore conservatives, and now they're these national populist types and embracing unionization and the like. I find the whole thing bizarre. There are a lot of things I've changed my mind on over time, largely as I've gotten older and see the world a little different, but it's just weird to have this wholesale flipping and reversal of ideas and policies over time by people as we politically realign. But there are a lot of people, particularly in the 20s and 30s, who are trying to find their way in politics, who as the older generation begins to retire or die, they sense this political realignment and they're trying to find their footing into it to become the new vanguard of whatever is next. And that it plays out well on social media for a lot of them, where they build social media profiles but aren't particularly accomplished in the real world. Liz Cheney may completely evolve. I don't know. But I don't think she's a bad person. But here's the thing. I don't think Wyoming voters are bad for choosing to move on either. Wyoming voters get to make that choice. They made that choice democratically. They went and voted, and they chose someone else. It doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them bigots. It doesn't make them haters. It doesn't even make them part of some personality cult of Donald Trump. It makes them, Wyoming voters, ready to move on. And as I don't particularly have any sort of animosity or animus towards Liz Cheney, I certainly don't to Wyoming voters who decided they're ready to chart a course in the future that leaves behind the Bush-Cheney legacy, as much of the Republican Party has been doing. And that really doesn't have anything to do with Donald Trump. He is not a cause of something. He is a symptom of something. Donald Trump is the symptom, the sign, the symbol of an American political realignment that has manifested first very publicly, successfully on the right, but it's also happening to the left. And here's my problem. It's going to happen on the left. It is happening on the left. We see it with transgenderism. We see it with the wokes. We see it with the defund the police. We see it with the squad. We see it with Antifa and Black Lives Matters and the far left activism and the defund the police and the identity politics. But here's the thing. Many of the people in the media who see this profound shakeup and realignment on the right and are appalled at it can't see that it's happening on the left, and will probably not be appalled at it when it does happen because they're further to the left than most people are, and that will just perpetuate further the realignment on the right as it solidifies a non-white voting force with blue-collar people and becomes dominant, and the media can't help themselves but go back to the old playbook of screaming racism over all these non-white people becoming more and more Republican.